It was a dark and stormy night in central Texas, where the wind blew and the trees fell. But then the sun came out and the cattle settled, and it was time to look for some lumber. So when the trees fall down, it's time to harvest, and harvest we did. Pecan, pecan, and more pecan. What a wonderful stack of lumber. What can we do with this?
So we're here today to be able to get some pecan wood for a couple benches we're going to make. So here's a couple of piles of this pecan wood. So it's pan over here, Katie, and we can see we have. So these are our choices of what we have. We've selected a couple of prime pieces to make these benches out of. So we're going to cut 6 feet down here, down this section, and we'll use this for our stock for our legs. So we're going to make this the live edge over here, and this edge over here will be cut square to the back. So now we're going to make a cut through here. All right, all done. So I have this pecan plank here, this slab. I'm gonna build a bench out of for my buddy Bob. Today we're gonna see if this is dry enough, and we're gonna start measuring it for dimensions and create some cuts in it.
Here I'm using the straight edge to draw a line to make a cut to have one edge flat and smooth to put up against the wall.
So these big slabs, I have this big line marked down here. I could cut my circular saw, but I think it'd be easier to cut it on my bandsaw. But that's a pretty hefty board to have up there. And I said, well, if I had this rolling table, I could put it on there and roll it up, that'd be pretty easy. But the difference is, top of my bandsaw table is 39 inches, and over here, it's almost 29. So I have a total of this 10 inches. So what I'm gonna build, I'm gonna build a traveling platform. So the platform will raise it up as hookers, set it on top of here. I can use it to push it into the bandsaw, and then turn it around and put it on the outfeed side and pull it out. So that's what we're going to do next.
So the first thing I did was grab a bunch of scrap wood. I got a bunch of oak pieces that were basically remnants from oak flooring that was put down. So I'm not real worried about consuming real quality lumber. It is good quality lumber, but it's scrap. So for that, this oak will hold nicely, be nice and firm, and I can drill the end grain of it and it'll hold. So I'll cut everything to about 8.5 inches because my plywood makes up the other 1.5 inches. And I just screw it together to build this frame to make my traveler jig. Lots of holes, and there we go. We got it. Now let's test it to see if the size is right. Roll it up next to my bandsaw. What do you know? Perfect height. That's great. So now my first cut. I load my board up on my traveler jig, turn on my bandsaw, turn off the brakes on the table, and push it on through. So once you get it about halfway through, you're able to balance it just in the middle, and you move your traveler jig around the other side, and then you go back and you finish pushing it through to the other side. Bingo, it's done.
So the whole purpose of this traveling jig was to raise up this lumber so I could get access to my bandsaw. It's too big for one person to cut and manage, but it works perfect to be able to raise up the height to another work surface, whether it be a bandsaw or whether it be a planer.
So one of the first steps was to cut some of the lumber in size enough for leg blanks. So I got a variety of pieces and shaped them enough to where I could get the length correct, and then would later go on to the bandsaw to start working on the width. So on my bandsaw, I get the measurement for the width I want for the legs and take my blanks and start cutting them to the proper width. And so we get all those cut, and then we're going to go right to the thickness planer. So I take my thickness planer sled and put the legs on it. I'm able to put 4 legs at once on the sled and run them through to get them nice and smooth and all even. So in this step, I'm cutting the cross members for the leg frame, which will be the crossbar and the A, cutting them all to shape and size so they'll fit nicely in the leg. So to mark my angle legs, I have this level on here, and I have put the level up against the legs with the 5° at the bottom position. So I'll mark off that top spot because that's going to be exactly where my tenon will start. For these are the legs for the bench. So I'm building the leg support for the bench. So I have these 2 legs, and I'm going to attempt to have this leg go in here. So I've marked where the leg needs to be placed, centered off of here. And since they're 2 1/8 tall, this is 1 inch down there and on this side as well. So what we're going to do is place our mitered edge there, and we're going to come on this side and mark that side to know where to cut it. Our level's flat. That's where our angle cut's going to go. So that'll match the other side. We should be good. So I have all my leg pairs cut. So I have 4 of them for 2 benches. You can see some wonderful spalting in here. Had one leg had to be a little creative on because it didn't have any stock thick enough to work. So we're making do with that one. So now on to joinery. So we'll have to join the side piece into the middle brace. Okay, so now I'm gonna have my leg support that's gonna go in between here, and I've got this marked A and A, B and B. So I'm gonna do this with dowel holes. So when we put the dowels in here, even though they're drilled straight, they're coming in at an angle, and that angle should be matching that perfectly like that. So we'll drill that one in that fashion, and then come over here and do that side. So let's get the holes drilled. All right, so this is in the leg side, and we're going to drill it. Now, drilling the middle support required a little bit of creative clamping. You just had to stick with it to figure it out. So once I got all the clamping down and knew the angles of what I had to do and what was the best way to clamp it, you could just zip through them like lickety-split. So with that, we got all 4 legs done. All right, so we got the first leg dry fit. So we got our dowel joinery between here. So this is one of 4 sets of legs it will do. The top part up here, it will be tenons that will fit into the mortises in the bench. So after I tested dry fit each of the legs, I did a little bit of sanding, and then I was ready for glue up. So just to make sure I paired each of the legs with the right pieces, get all that done, slap some glue on it, clamp it up, and then let it dry. We're ready for the next step.
All right, so we're going to stop here because this video has gone on 10 minutes or longer. And we'll make part 2 of this video, having the mortises cut into the bench and the tenons on the legs. And that's a long process, so that deserves a video unto itself. Here's a link below for part 2.